WWF Superstars was released in 1991 by LJN. It's a Game Boy exclusive, and it's pretty good. It is one of the better LJN games that was released at this time. The roster's kind of small, but that's not really a huge problem, and it's kind of what you should expect for a Game Boy game. This is more of an arcade game, so don't expect anything extravagant here. I really wasn't too sure what I was getting into since I had never played this game before, but I found it to be pretty fun. The gameplay is pretty basic. There's really nothing amazing about it, but it gets the job done. There are only 5 wrestlers in this game. You can pick from Mr. Perfect, Hulk Hogan, Ted DiBiase, Randy Savage, and the Ultimate Warrior. I think a lot of the space that could have been used to add 1 or 2 more wrestlers went to these cutscenes, and they're pretty cool. With only 5 wrestlers on the roster, it really limits what you can actually do in this game, so there's a really kind of pathetic number of game modes, but it is what you would expect from a Game Boy game. You mostly are just doing one-on-one matches, but you can do a gauntlet match where you go through all the wrestlers on the roster. You can do a 2-player mode, but you're gonna need all the extra hardware that goes along with that because, it's a Game Boy game. This is really the bare minimum of what you would expect from a wrestling game on the Game Boy. This is like one of the early NES games, and it reminds me a little bit of like Tag Team Wrestling or Muscle. It's not gonna blow you away, but the controls are decent enough, and everything kind of works the way you would expect. There aren't too many moves that you can do, but that's not really a huge problem. I'm assuming Nintendo just expected you to be playing this for like 5 to 10 minutes and then moving on to something else. And that's pretty much what you're going to get out of this. The Game Boy was capable of doing more than this, but in 1990 and 1991, the system was still fairly new, and I just kind of assumed that the developers were learning how to create games for it. Hopefully the next one is better, but the next one's another LJN game, so I'm not going to hold my breath. WWF Superstars looks pretty good for a game released on the Game Boy in 1991. The wrestlers all look different from each other, the ring looks pretty good, there are taunt scenes in it, which I just absolutely love. The fact that everything kind of looks a little bit different and everything looks pretty good, that's not something you can always say about an LJN game, but this one is really nice looking. The wrestlers, the ring, the whole presentation, it's very well done, especially for something that was put out that early. The only thing that I don't like are some of the move animations. They don't always really make sense at times, but that goes more into just the cartoonish feel of this. They probably look a little bit better on the Game Boy screen, to be honest. I was playing on a TV, so things might not have looked as good. I was seeing it as a much larger picture than what it would normally be, and also I was seeing it in black and white instead of just shades of, pea soup green. So maybe it'll look different if you're playing it on like an actual Game Boy. I do love the cutscenes though, they're just so much fun. I love how the developers did this by having the wrestlers talk trash to each other. It adds some character to an otherwise bland game just because there's no story or anything like that. It feels like you're playing a fighting game, which is always a lot of fun. Overall, this is a pretty average game. There isn't too much to do, but what is there is pretty good. I kind of like this game, but it isn't something that I'm really ever going to come back to. If I was riding in a car somewhere back in 1991, this would have been great. It would have been a nice distraction from what was going on, and it would have been fun for a little while, and then I probably would have turned to something else. It isn't a bad game, but there's just not a whole lot there to really hold your attention. It is just a decent Game Boy game. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.